This is a pretty young booster overall for SpaceX. Only 3 previous flights. We have a graphic to illustrate the launches that this rocket has accomplished. And there you see it all began with Crew 7 back in August of 2023, followed by another trip to the International Space Station with CRS-29, and then finally Starlink 634. So it had a human spaceflight mission. It went to the International Space Station. It also did a Starlink, and here is number 4 with Pace.
Yeah, Daryl, we're very excited to be the 4th flight on this booster. Launch Services Program actually supported our commercial crew program, our sister program, on that Crew 7 mission. We looked at this booster and did some hardware reviews for them, and so we've got
started.
So we know a lot of history about this booster, and as things move forward. There we just heard the call out for engine chill starting for getting things ready for launch this morning as we have the RP1 and LOX filling up the tanks.
Yeah, those tanks are mostly full as we're looking at the rocket here from a distance, getting ready to complete that. In fact, we should hear a call out in just about 30 seconds that the Stage 1 RP load is complete. And then we'll start moving through a number of milestones where we get that rocket ready to be on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. The team will finish that up, and then they'll start their sequencing to get ready for the flight computer.
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
And there we heard the call out for Stage 1 RP1 load complete. And as I was saying, the flight computer then will take over as sequencing the vehicle to get ready for launch as it sends on its way on that 98-degree inclination that you and Jimmy talked about.
It's a steep inclination. It's going to get up into space in a hurry. A Cape Polar orbit, which hasn't happened for NASA from this location in 60 years. It's an exciting time to see a rocket flying to the south, going over Florida and Cuba.
Yes, heading south and then making a dog leg to get into that polar orbit. Normally we would do these from Vandenberg Air Force Base out in California, but due to the performance and things that we have on here on the Eastern Range with this Falcon 9, we can do this Cape Polar orbit out of here. And so very excited to see that happen after 60 years.
A number of milestones coming up here shortly in just a few seconds. We're going to retract the strong back that's holding the rocket in place that you see out there on the pad. And we're also going to get the spacecraft on internal power. Test Director Nusha Hagani and her team getting ready.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
So there we heard strong back retract, as you mentioned, Daryl, and also heard from the launch manager and the SMD for the spacecraft that they are on internal power and configured for launch. So things are moving along here very quickly as we get ready to get down to T0.
Strong retract has started.
And lift off pace this morning.
And now the strong back will retract just about 2 degrees prior to launch. It'll go further once the rocket lifts off, clearing the way to allow the rocket to go. And we're waiting to check out from
LD,
the NLM.
This is NLM on Countdown Net. LD. Pace is go for launch. Copy.
All right, NLM Tim Dunn giving the go for launch for the NASA team, the spacecraft team, and launch services program. SpaceX now proceeding forward.
Yeah, things are progressing. That's good to hear that the spacecraft's on internal power and everybody's ready to go. We should be coming up on LOX load complete here in about 15 seconds for Stage 1 and about another minute for Stage 2. But as we're looking at the data here in front of us, Daryl, here in Hangar AE, things are progressing very well, and the team is performing admirably this morning, getting this vehicle ready for liftoff at 1:33:36.
The final
Stage
fill.
1 LOX load is complete.
There you go.
So stage 1 ready. We're just waiting to finalize LOX load on stage 2 and continue moving forward, and then we will get into some of that flight sequencing and getting the autonomous flight termination system ready to go, and then the final go at 45 seconds from SpaceX before they turn the vehicle over to the flight computer.
And once they get down to 45 seconds, there's no more holding the launch on the count of the spacecraft. They'll be committed at that point.
Yes, absolutely. Having all this cold LOX in on the first stage and second stage commits us to this time, and things are looking good.
There was a slight adjustment to the T0, Mick. It was 1:33 and 32 seconds, but it slipped 4 seconds due to a COLA real quickly. Why is that?
Yeah,
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
There we hear stage 2 complete, so that's a good sign. But the COLA is our collision avoidance analysis that we need to do to make sure we don't hit something that's in space already as we lift off and ascend this morning. And the original time, as you said, was 1:33:32, and we had 4 COLA conjunctions this morning for those seconds, so we went to the next
ground gas closeouts.
Next second that we could, and that put us at that 1:33:36. So things were able to adjust very quickly for the 4 seconds and get ready for launch this morning.
And you see the large plume, the large cloud coming around the Falcon 9 rocket, and that's the venting off of the liquid oxygen in the line that runs up to the second stage. Proceeding now, T-minus 1 minute and counting until liftoff of Pace and the Falcon 9 rocket.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
So there we hear Falcon 9 in startup, configuring all the systems. Autonomous FTS is being configured. The systems are being configured.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
And there's the big moment. T-minus 40 seconds and counting. Many on the Pace spacecraft team now going outside to watch this launch. It should be a beauty.
T-minus 30 seconds.
All systems are go. Getting down to the final seconds.
15 seconds. T-minus 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. Full power engines and liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Pace, helping keep pace with our ever-changing ocean and atmosphere.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
All 9 Merlin engines lit up and roaring. 1.7 million pounds of thrust.
Chamber pressures on the telemetry are feeling good here, Daryl. 9 engines performing very well.
That's great news.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Makes its steep climb into its orbit. Right about 2 minutes on the first stage. A view from the rocket camera.
Vehicle supersonic.
Here we hear Falcon 9 supersonic coming up on max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the launch vehicle.
Max Q.
Pass through max Q, the vehicle continues to perform nominally, all 9 engines firing.
MVAC engine chill has started.
Starting to chill the second stage engine to get that ready. They bleed a little bit of LOX in there so it doesn't get thermal shock once they light it up. A view there, looking down the first stage booster. Getting ready to cut off the engine and separate. We'll have a number of milestones all happening quickly in rapid succession.
We're about 10 seconds from main engine cutoff, and then we'll have stage 1, 2 SEP, and then stage 2 ignition.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
There it goes, the first stage of the rocket. Second stage now lighting
back
up.
ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
You see the glow of the first stage as it falls away.
Excited to see that first stage come back here to landing zone 1 this morning. That will be great as stage 2 continues to perform. Getting that stage back here will be exciting.
If you're here on the Space Coast and you're watching, get ready for a double thunderclap at just about T plus 7 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes. The double sonic booms of the first stage booster breaking the sound barrier as it returns to Earth.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
So now the first stage has positioned itself on a return trajectory back here to landing zone 1, which is only a mile or so from our location at Hangar AE. We get quite the thunderclap.
Yeah, always love to hear the landing zone back here when we're in the hangar. We're about 10 seconds away from jettison fairing of the payload fairing, exposing PACE to the atmosphere.
This is a big moment for the spacecraft team.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Looking inside, there go the fairings, revealing the PACE spacecraft to the elements. Now PACE will seek to get a signal on the TDRS satellite for our first acquisition of signal.
Yeah, this will be a downlink of a low-level signal on the TDRS network, utilizing the telemetry network to verify that PACE is the transmitter is on, and then they will continue monitoring the spacecraft until separation, and then be able to get their data once they get power positive that we'll see later.
And in that moment you just described, that time period that you just described, they'll only be monitoring data coming from the PACE satellite. They will not be sending any commands in.
Absolutely. Nothing until the spacecraft separates from the stage 2. The spacecraft team will just continue to monitor the health of the spacecraft using the TDRS network and looking at the telemetry. Everything so far on second stage is performing very well. Looks good on our trajectory. They just made a call. Somebody called ASO, but nobody's answered.
And there's a shot from the first stage booster as we're coming back down to the Cape. You can see the lights of the Space Coast. It's a pretty shot.
I love that shot. Seeing the coast of Florida come back into view.
2 more burns left.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
That's the first one, the entry burn, for about 30 seconds. You see it lighting up now. Grid fins are out to help give it a precision landing, guiding the first stage booster back to landing zone 1. Split screen now. Well, we did have it. There's
Stage
a shot.
2 FTS is saved.
There's a shot of the booster coming back down from the ground.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
All right, and in comes the first stage booster. Second stage continuing on a nominal trajectory. You can probably see us in there somewhere.
I love that view at night too. To see it'll be really nice to see that as it gets closer. The coast of Florida as we come up on landing zone 1. Stage 2 continues to perform nominally
Stage
on a
1 transonic.
great trajectory for stage 2 as spacecraft continues to look very well during this flight.
Stage 1 landing burn.
All right, there goes the landing burn. In just a few seconds, we'll have a booster on the ground. A look from the ground. We hear the thunder here at
we
Hangar
hear those
AE.
double claps.
Landing leg deploy.
Here she comes.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Another pinpoint landing by the first stage booster. Flight number 4 for the first stage in the books. Second stage continuing to burn on a 7.5 minute direct inject into orbit. This will be a quick ride, Mick.
Very quick as the continues to perform very well. We're looking for this to continue firing, and we'll get second stage cut off at around T plus 10 minutes, but things look very well on the telemetry. Vehicle's performing very well, and MVAC is nominal.
The second stage on a Cape polar trajectory hasn't been done by NASA in the past 60 years. SpaceX, though, has done it 11 times. This would be the 12th. T plus 9 minutes on the count. Just about 3 minutes left. Actually, check that. Just about a minute left on the stage 2 burn. There will only be one stage 2 burn.
Yeah, as Jimmy explained to us in the trajectory, this is a direct inject sun synchronous orbit. So just a single burn for the stage 2 this morning. And things continue to look well. Chamber pressure on MVAC and trajectory look nominal.
And then we'll coast for just a few minutes and separate the Pace Observatory. Standing by for stage 2 cutoff, known as SECO 1. We'll have that in just a few seconds.
MVAC shut down.
All right, there you have it. Now we're going to coast for a few minutes and take a look at the forward-facing camera so we can see the Pace spacecraft, which is being monitored by the spacecraft team. The engine nozzle on stage 2 still glowing just a bit from a 7.5 minute burn.
Yeah, all telemetry on stage 2 looks nominal for the flight. Looks like a very good stage 2 performance so far. So we'll see how things go as we get ready for spacecraft separation.
Now just about 1 minute away. This is a big moment for the Pace spacecraft team. One in which they're holding their breath a bit. There you see Pace now.
I love that camera view from the front of the stage 2, looking at the Pace spacecraft out there in that dark space right now. Things are looking really well, and I love that. Love to see that camera view.
Dark indeed, as they launched into an orbital eclipse. So Pace has no sunlight on it, as you can see. But the hope is once they get those solar arrays deployed, a critical moment, they're going to be looking to get power on it. There goes Pace.
Payload separation confirmed.
Off into space on its own, flying free. We've got applause here at the Mission Directors Center at Hangar AE. Looks like a good separation. Vehicle pretty stable.
Yeah, launch vehicle performed very well today, and glad to see Pace separated. We've got a few more milestones that the team will be working on to get Pace to power positive.
Hopefully we can have this view for a bit longer. You see stacked to the right side of the screen, the 3 lines. Those are the solar arrays. It's a 3-panel array. And once the guidance and navigation control system senses that it's got basically nulled the rates, the spacecraft is stable, it'll start to deploy those solar arrays. And it will be done autonomously. It's dark out there, so we're starting to lose our view. We are now passing the milestone in which we expect the solar arrays to be deployed. Again, this is the expected milestone. It's dark out there. Again, no sunlight. Now you're looking at a view of inside the Mission Directors Center. That front row there, staffed by the team from the Goddard Space Flight Center as they look anxiously at their monitors. The solar arrays are expected to take a few minutes to deploy. If it holds to the milestone, and so we just got word that they have confirmation the solar array deploy has begun. Again, solar array deploy has begun for the spacecraft. It's a 3-panel array. It's a critical milestone. And what goes hand in hand with that, Mick, is for the GNC, the Guidance, Navigation, and Control, to get that spacecraft and that solar array sun pointing. Can't do it yet because there is no sun in its current state. But we got a good ride into space. We will continue to monitor the nets here and the Pace spacecraft team. But in the meantime, we're going to send it back to Jasmine and Laura.
Thank you so much, Daryl and Mick. A beautiful launch followed by a smooth ride into space so far for Pace. Laura, what do you think?
It was absolutely stunning, and we are so relieved. Everybody in the Pace team has been cheering. All of our NASA colleagues have been cheering, as have all of you been cheering. So it is a great dawn for Pace and ocean and atmospheric sciences.
It really is. That was a great way to put it, Laura. So if you are just joining us, you are watching NASA's official coverage of the Pace launch. That's the Plankton Aerosol Cloud Ocean Ecosystem. It lifted off about 16 minutes ago aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from right here on Florida's Space Coast. So now Pace is on its way to orbit 420 miles above Earth, where it will collect data on both particles in the ocean as well as the air. Let's take a closer look at how those are connected.
Between September 2019 and March 2020, wildfires killed billions of animals and decimated more than 200,000 square kilometers of Australian forest. Some thousands of kilometers away, in the Southern Ocean, massive algae blooms covered a surface larger than the area of Australia itself. Just how are these wildfires and ocean blooms connected? To untangle that, we look to the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is the flow of carbon between reservoirs in the atmosphere, plants and animals, land and ocean. If we look to the ocean reservoir, carbon dioxide is also absorbed by phytoplankton, microscopic organisms that convert carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight into carbohydrates like sugar and oxygen through photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere eventually becomes available for aquatic photosynthesis. But photosynthesis also requires nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and iron. Without the right proportions of these nutrients, photosynthesis doesn't happen, which can be seen in the iron-limited parts of the ocean, such as far offshore of Australia. Atmospheric aerosols released by fires, however, contain carbon as well as other nutrients essential for plant growth, like iron. When these aerosols are deposited on the ocean's surface, these nutrients become available for photosynthesis. This iron from the Australian wildfires is now thought to have stimulated the massive Southern Ocean phytoplankton blooms, blooms of such magnitude that they converted an almost equivalent volume of carbon dioxide released by the fires into carbohydrates and cellular material.
With an instrument like OCI, where you're measuring this full spectrum of color, all the colors of the rainbow you can imagine, we can start teasing apart the species and the different functional groups and different communities that exist.
The data from PACE will help define those communities, allowing for clearer connections within the reservoirs of the carbon cycle. These fires emitted a huge amount of carbon and other aerosols into the atmosphere. Those aerosols contained essential nutrients that are thought to have stimulated the rapid growth of phytoplankton in the Southern Ocean. And these kinds of connections can have big impacts.
It's really important to know where the carbon is going and where your food source is going. This is important for not just climate studies, but food security.
With data from PACE, we'll get a clearer picture of carbon as it links land use and fires, atmospheric aerosols and marine communities, and ultimately improves the data that we put into climate models.
NASA scientists are hard at work using data like what they'll get from PACE to better understand climate change. Megan Cruz is standing by with one of NASA's experts on climate science right now. Megan?
I am. This is Kate Calvin. She's NASA's chief scientist and also the senior climate advisor for the agency. What a beautiful launch we just saw.
It was beautiful. And it's so exciting to see this mission go and start to send us data soon.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. You know, PACE is going to advance our understanding of the Earth's climate and how it's changing so drastically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing, an increase in warming. The last 10 years have been the warmest since modern record keeping began. And that warming trend is driven by greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide. And PACE is going to give us a better understanding of how the oceans absorb carbon and that exchange of carbon between the ocean and the atmosphere. It's also going to tell us a lot more about these tiny particles in the atmosphere called aerosols that can reflect or absorb sunlight and affect cloud formation, all of which is really important for climate.
So we're obviously going to learn a lot, but how can we use that data and turn it into how we address climate change?
So one of the important things, the more we understand about climate, the better we can predict it in the future. And we can take that and use that to help better plan. And that's something we're working on throughout NASA, is helping people understand what's happening where they live, what we know about what might happen in the future, and make sure they have that information ready at their fingertips. And PACE is going to help contribute to that.
And what I love about this is PACE is not the only Earth-observing satellite out there. And in particular, it's going to work with one that launched just last year, or a little bit over a year ago, that's really going to help us get a better understanding of our oceans.
Yeah, absolutely. So NASA has more than 24 satellites and instruments in orbit. They're each designed to measure something different. So we can see things like vegetation, carbon dioxide, clouds and precipitation, or oceans. And so you mentioned the satellite from a little over a year ago called SWOT, or Surface, Water, and Ocean Topography. So what SWOT's looking at is physics of the ocean. So how the water moves, the height of the seas, how it mixes. What PACE is going to do is tell us what's living in that water. And they're both really important because the oceans absorb a lot of heat and carbon, and understanding how the water moves and what's living in it will help us better understand that.
And really quick, what would you say to the team right now as they're about to embark on a wonderful opportunity to learn so much for the Earth?
Oh, this is just such an exciting time. It's such a great mission. It's taken a while to get here, but we've launched launched, and in no later than 60 days from now, we'll start to have data, and it's going to give us information not just about climate, but about air quality, water quality, fisheries, harmful algal blooms, and it's just really exciting to be here.
And that's data we're going to share with the public, so that's exciting as well.
Absolutely. All the data will be publicly available.
Great. Kate, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so you guys have been hearing Daryl and Mick talk about waiting for power positive, so let's turn it back to them so they could walk us through that next milestone.
Thank you very much, Megan. Back here at Hangar AE, we heard some brief applause when we had the spacecraft separate, but now comes the big moment, getting that confirmation that the solar arrays have deployed and they're catching sun. We got a little ways to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. The team was very happy to see deployment off a second stage, and I know that the next big milestone for them is that power positive. So.
All right, there you see a look inside the Mission Director's Center as the teams wait for that telemetry to come in from the PACE Observatory, which is flying free now. T plus 23 minutes and counting. PACE launched into an orbital eclipse. And so once the solar arrays are presumably deployed and it comes out of the eclipse, the spacecraft will automatically orient itself towards the sun, and that's when the team will be able to see that power flowing through the solar panels at a rate that would tell them that it's sun pointing and it's in the right place.
Sun pointing and charging that battery back up. You know, they've been on internal power, using that battery power for flight, and so that solar panel will help them get the vehicle charged back up and continue their mission.
That's right, those batteries are key, Mick. As we learned throughout the program, this PACE spacecraft orbits the Earth every 98 minutes, and as it does so, when it goes in from the sunny side to the eclipse side, those batteries help power it through the dark phase. And so charging those batteries are key to PACE carrying out its mission. If you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff at 1:33 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Complex 40 here at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We rode the first stage of a Falcon 9 rocket for several minutes before it separated, came back down to LZ-1 after about 7 minutes. Stage 2 of the rocket then flew PACE for about 7.5 minutes, ultimately separating around 12.5 minutes after liftoff. And we watched as PACE went on its own into space and separated from that stage 2. It was in the midst of an eclipse, so it was a quick goodbye. We saw it go off into the darkness of space.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the pictures from stage 2 were incredible. Not only watching PACE separate from stage 2, but just continuing on its way to perform this exciting mission that we've heard all about this morning. But that video, just, you know, it was exciting to watch that and be a part of this. And I know the PACE team is anxiously awaiting that power positive information. But, you know, we got PACE where it needs to be and on its way. So this is a great start to the launch this morning.
Jim Free, NASA's Associate Administrator, is here on hand. He is there in the control room. You can see him in the second row in the middle, the fourth from the right. All along the first row, the teams from the Goddard Space Flight Center. They have a team back at Goddard that is online as well, the Mission Operations Center, and that's where the spacecraft will be commissioned. And it is also where they are sending commands and receiving telemetry at this very moment. I spoke to PACE Test Director Nusha Hagani, and she relayed to me that this is these are some tense moments. You know, as a team watches and waits to get that confirmation that the sun is shining on the solar arrays and it's oriented in the correct direction. Once they get that confirmation, I'm sure we'll see a reaction from the team. According to the milestones, we are at the point in which the Goddard spaceflight team can command the spacecraft after waiting for a period of time as it came off of the second stage. That's so they don't get anything mixed up with the second stage of the rocket as it's going into a disposal burn and the spacecraft is going on into its orbit. T plus 29 minutes and counting. We are now into the moment where we would expect the milestone of power positive to happen, but we also know and have been told by the Goddard team that it could take a little longer.
Yeah, Daryl, I know as the spacecraft team is waiting for this information, the launch vehicle team has been doing a quick look on how Stage 1 and Stage 2 performed today, and so far everything is reporting in as perfectly performed launch vehicle today. As we saw in the video spacecraft step, Falcon 9 delivered pace where it needed to be. So that's good news on the quick look of the launch vehicle. And I know that the PACE team is excited to be where they are, just waiting for that power positive confirmation.
Great report out there, Mick. And as PACE was delivered to an orbit 674 kilometers, about 400 miles above the Earth's surface. PACE has 10 years of fuel on board to do its observations and report back its scientific data. But you never know with these satellites. They can go a lot longer. Just depends on how they use their fuel in the course of the next 10 years. Scientists, of course, always want more data. And many times they're rewarded with that when a spacecraft exceeds expectations, as often they do. Again, if you're just joining us, we are awaiting confirmation of a milestone called power positive. That milestone means that the PACE spacecraft has oriented itself into the sun and deployed its solar arrays fully so that it's getting power on all three panels so that it can charge its batteries and begin turning on the scientific instruments. T plus 32 minutes and counting. PACE spacecraft dimensions are 3 meters by 3.5 meters. It weighs 1,439 kilograms. Has a 3-panel canted solar array. And that solar array is the critical final milestone that will allow the team to take a deep breath and, of course, continue to monitor the telemetry trend. And all right, you can see the applause there in the Mission Director Center. The spacecraft team happy to report that they have power positive on the PACE spacecraft. Again, the final milestone, power positive on the solar arrays on the PACE spacecraft. That's great news. Congratulations to the PACE team.
Absolutely.
This is a big moment.
Successful mission. There we go. Excellent news. Spacecraft's happy. We saw some clapping. Things are going great. PACE is on its way. Power positive. That is a successful mission for PACE.
And just to recap, we launched at 1:33 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time from the Space Coast here, Space Launch Complex 40. We rode the Falcon 9 for about 7.5 minutes and then got into space. We watched PACE separate about 12 minutes after that, Mick. And then at T plus 33 minutes roughly, we got confirmation that not only the solar arrays had deployed, but also PACE had aimed itself towards the sun once the spacecraft came out of a orbital eclipse, which was a big moment.
Very big moment, and very exciting to, not only get PACE on its way, have the launch vehicle perform the way it did, bring the booster back to landing zone 1. Daryl, I've told you this many times before, but this never gets old for me. I love this, and I'm just so excited for not only the launch vehicle team, but for the PACE spacecraft team. Very excited to see them on their way and get ready for this exciting mission.
A job well done by all today, and certainly now the PACE team can rest easy, but they're still working. The power team is going to stay on for another couple of orbits, which is another 3 hours, to make sure that they see that power data is trending in the right direction. And then, of course, commissioning of the PACE satellite will take another 60 days before they can start getting in some of that scientific data. But this launch, of course, the first launch for NASA's Launch Services program, but it is, as I understand, the last launch for a very special member of your team.
Yeah, absolutely, Daryl. It's the first for 2024, but this is the last launch for our program manager, Amanda Mickiewicz. This marks an end of an era. It's a conclusion of a remarkable journey. Amanda, I just want to say you're amazing. Your leadership transcends the boundaries of the Launch Services program and the Kennedy Space Center, resonating across the entire aerospace community. Even with your extraordinary achievements, you remain remarkably humble in your role. You always challenge us to strive for success. Over the past 14 years, you have steered the Launch Services program with unwavering dedication, maximizing mission success and contributing significantly to the evolution of the space industry. Your mentorship, your friendship, and your compassionate leadership style have been the driving force behind our team's pursuit of excellence. It is no surprise that you stand as a DBUS Award winner and your absence will be deeply felt. As your LSP family, we gather this morning on this, your final mission, to say, see you later. While we will miss you dearly, we hope you realize the profound impact you've had on each of us.